the big thing that I wanted to kind of talk about or share at least is the Yulu OS that Shelly's put together, um, which makes it Voy transactable uh, by AI agents. And I've started to dig into it. After this, I'm going to work with Haruf to see if we can get him set up with an instance as well, so we can do some work on kind of building out some different things and doing some more blockchain research on being able to query past transactions easier. And uh, there's a lot of different ways that you can use the tool. um, yeah, I was joking with Shelly earlier, if and he brought it up to me, that if Taco knew how to use this thing, uh, it would be an interesting time to be alive. I said that I wouldn't be teaching Taco how to use it.
Yeah.
At any rate, um, yeah, I think my point earlier was really just that we should be a little bit more targeted with how we present ourselves moving forward. I think that there hasn't been a strong narrative, and I've had lots of conversations with Roof about this as well. That there's needs to be a better reason for why Voy, and I think that we've got a newly um, a new opportunity for us to kind of lean into a new narrative as well. So that's just my thought.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I know Algorand's going for it pretty hard too with the AI agents.
Yeah.
It seems to be where it's going. So I'm all for it. And as far as with our price action, what do you think about it if we started doing a little bit of burning on if we figured out where our budget's at, what we haven't used so far? Maybe we can burn some of those tokens. I don't know if that would help any.
Burn some of the tokens that we haven't used so far. Is that what you're
Yeah,
thinking?
yeah, yep.
Mm. Yeah, I'm not sure. I wonder if that would help. How many tokens are you talking?
Like so you know how we got it out for our plan. We're like what at 2 billion on our circulating supply. Maybe if we just figured out, like, since we got it figured out for the 20-year plan, I think we got like 850 million, I think, that is that we can use for we could get rid of like 50 million of them. I don't know how much that would do for the price, but I don't have it in front of me right now, but I was kind of doing some math on it. I didn't get it all figured out. I was just thinking about it this morning, though. Maybe if we could, if House of Void goes, and we can start getting um, some LP in there, maybe we can get some incentives. Maybe if he can pull a proposal together for that, that may help.
Yeah, and it's a thought. I feel like we need to do something. Um, and Shelly's in the chat there saying we need to really create a sink, um, more so than burn tokens. And one of the things that is a sink that we've all been waiting for sure is the House of Voy, and I think you know I don't know where we're at with the development of that, and I think some of the other things that uh, could potentially help with the sell pressure is just tightening up a little bit in terms of where we're spending. And I know that's been a common theme that Haruf's been pushing for some time now. I think that we also need, you know, as I was mentioning before, a narrative to lean into, and we are, you know, a cheaper place to have transactions to build and deploy than Algorand, and you know, I think there is an opportunity there to take some market share away. Um, you know, in some instances, although there's not a whole lot of market share to be had from an individual user standpoint. But I do see more AI agents to be deployed and growing, and you know, I think we should be leaning into it. Um, and yeah, I feel like I'm talking in a circle.
Yeah. I was watching a video this morning. One of the Algorand guys talking and was talking about how the blockchain was the best for the AI agents because they're not going to use credit cards for for 3 or 5 cents transactions,
Yeah,
and blockchain's like perfect for it.
yeah, exactly.
So
It's those things, and then they can, with what Shelley's put together in and what Zarmian's done with the AVM Studio. You know, you can really set an agent. You can tell them to build applications and have the agent build and deploy the applications. At this point, it's pretty powerful. Um, so I'm still experimenting and doing things with it, but there is an opportunity to. What you can also do is you can essentially set up arbitrage bots that are arbing in between um, the chains themselves. So you could set up a bot to arb between Algorand and Voy. Um, you could set one up, to bridge automatically for you. You could set one up to, do all sorts of different things like minting WAD, um, depositing on DorkFi. So, it's just like what what do you want it to do, you know?
yeah,
And coming up with ideas for different use cases. And that's where we could be leaning into the fact that, hey, um, we're one of the better places, the cheaper places to experiment with these types of ideas. There he is. Zarmian, what's up,
Oh
man? How you
yeah.
doing?
Oh, doing well over here. I like
Been,
your
are you
angle.
under snow?
I understand. No, it's like 70 today.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
60 maybe. I don't know. 70. It was in the 70s yesterday. It was crazy.
I
But it's gonna go
know
back to 30 or 40. It'll probably snow again.
my
Can't wait.
mom on the Cape was yeah, was
Oh yeah.
like 2 feet of snow last week. It's kind of
Yeah,
crazy.
they got it good. We didn't get that fortunately.
That's good. But yeah, what do you think about the angle and kind of the narrative shift? I have a
I mean, I like it. I think one thing we need is we need an X402 facilitator on Boy so that we are basically have parity with Algorand. And then the other thing I'm thinking, and I've been thinking this for a while, but I feel like you sort of touched on it, is almost like in talking about Boy as like a cheaper alternative to AVM or to Algorand for the AVM is like maybe we should lean into Voy almost being and remember how like Chris used to talk about wanting to create an incentivized test net for Voy, and
Yeah.
I feel like at this point Voy is basically an incentivized test net for Algorand or for
Yeah.
AVM. So like it's way like using Algorand testnet sucks because like yeah you can get tokens for free and you can test to make sure the contract deploys and you can do some basic crap with it, but you can't actually test swaps and you can't test you know doing more complicated things where you need some of the infrastructure
Mhm.
that the main net has, and Voy has that infrastructure so you can test real things and there is a monetary value behind it. It's just super cheap to do it. And
Mhm.
I almost want to lean into that as a way to like say, hey, if you're thinking of building something on Algorand, you can also build on Voy. You can do it very quickly. You can do it for cheaper and you can test out your concept and do like proof of concept stuff. And you have all
And
the
you have all
infrastructure and then like, you can also bring it to Algorand. You have that benefit.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean that's an interesting angle too. That makes sense to me, and it's how do we position it in the best way?
Yeah, and do it in a way that's not like diminishing Voy's value, which is I think the hardest thing to do is like we don't want to think of Voy as a test net, but if we can, get across the point that it makes a lot of sense to start on Voy
Mhm.
rather than going the opposite direction,
Yep.
you know, because once you're on Algorand, it doesn't make a ton of sense for a developer to start building stuff on Voy, but you know, at least from my experience, eh, it's it's a lot more interesting to build something on
something
Voy
on
and
board.
then to carry it over to Algorand later.
Mhm.
Or it's trivial then to bring it to Algorand once you've done that. But you can do all the heavy lifting on Voy, and that's, you know, I think that's significant. Um, yeah, that's really all I have with that.
No, and
I like
On
that
the,
whole thing.
it's good feedback, and I think that makes sense. And it's like, hey, what is the best positioning for us? Without diminishing, like you said, without diminishing the value that we've already created here. But it's like, hey, it's a cheaper place to really kind of experiment. So we might as well lean into the experimentation, and we have the tools to do so. And yeah, I think you mentioned that there's a missing piece to it as well, the X402 um, part. Do you know?
yeah,
Is that?
Go Plausible created a facilitator, and they're operating it on Algorand.
Mhm.
What we basically, I believe it's all open source. We basically need to run our own, use that application and point it to, point it to Void's node, and we should be able to do the exact same, like fund whatever the accounts are that are used for doing the facilitating, and then we
Mhm.
should be able to do it. I don't think it would be a lot of effort. I don't know. I haven't actually looked into it at all. I just haven't had the time, but I think it would be, you know, basically that would allow for X402 uh, creation of like APIs that are behind X402, which is like the payment required header. It basically makes it so you can charge someone to consume the API. And then if you look at what the other Chris has been making on Algorand and there's Algo Voy, I think it's like an extension from what I can gather, like a browser extension. It, if I'm understanding it right. What he's making is a way to basically gate like websites behind X402. So you could, if I'm understanding the concept, if I'm not, I think it would be a fun idea to implement. Is like think of like you go to the New York Times website and it's like you need a subscription to view an article. Well, you could gate content like a blog posts, articles, things like that behind an X402 paywall, which is like being marketed by Coinbase and whoever is, anyone who's behind it. Um, X402 is mostly marketed as like this payment rails for AI agents, but I like to think of it as like a general purpose way to put any sort of web content or internet content behind a paywall. So you could gate like you could create a blog that requires X402 payment to read an article, and then use this browser extension as your way to make your payment.
Mhm.
And I think that would be pretty cool conceptually. Whether that ever takes off or anything like that, there's a long road to making that happen or to making it palatable to everyday people. But the general concept is kind of cool. As opposed to like signing up for subscriptions for everything, you could pay, the 5 cents to view whatever the content is, on a case by case basis.
Mhm.
There is a proposal in right now. It came in this morning from a Chris. I can't remember his last name with the X402 and Voight and Algorand on it.
Oh,
Exactly
that's
what you're
cool.
talking
Is
about.
that already in Discord?
Yeah, it's in Discord. Yep.
I'll have to take a look at that and see what he's thinking. Algovoy, yeah, that's the thing. I saw this Algovoy, and I based on like a tweet was like, oh, this is what it sounds like, but
Hmm.
I don't know if that's actually what he's building.
Have you had a chance to play around with the Ulu OS?
I haven't yet. I've seen it. Looks really cool. I
It
mean,
is
it,
it's
it
really cool.
yeah.
So I've been experimenting with OpenClaw, and I have it running. I've got the Go Plausible MCP running, and I've got this all running, the Ulu OS running at the same time, using the same OpenClaw instance, and it is it's really really cool.
Yeah, I wanna look into that more. Um, this is
But it does
yeah,
make sense
I'm looking at
that
Chris's proposal. This looks cool.
if we have the X402 part kind of set up to like that does help, um, at least from my understanding, uh, you know, with being able to interact easier with OpenClaw.
Yeah, sorry, I got distracted. I've been looking at this proposal, and I think that this is exactly like I would definitely pay attention to this one.
Sweet. Yeah, and the one that I had put put together too, I kind of jumped the gun a little bit, and I'm kind of walking it back at this point, because I don't think it's exactly what we need. What I do think is we should start to really lean into those two narratives that we were talking about earlier. Cheaper place to experiment, and also a good place to be playing around with agents because it's cheaper.
Yeah, I agree,
And I
and
do.
I like what you're thinking. I mean, I think it's hard. We're kind of like at a spot of figure out what to do,
Oh,
make a
for sure.
move, or just go into oblivion. So I I just want to commend the effort.
Yeah, it's you know, it's one of those things that we gotta do something, right? Just anything at this point,
Hmm.
um, and keep trying. Like I'm not ready to give up, and I think we are in a place that um, you know we need we have advantages, which is the cheaper transactions and kind of like there's low risk to build here. Um, and we should lean into those things. And I also feel like just hasn't been enough. No offense to Fury, but the marketing and the Twitter program that he was running didn't do anything for us. We didn't have any good stats or anything that we were able to kind of champion on. And part of that is because we don't have a strong narrative and reason to like have people share different things. And there's not a very specific point for us to or thing for us to kind of point to around that narrative. So then it just becomes like we blend into all the other blockchains and what they're saying. So we have to.
I mean, the other thing to keep to make sure people understand is that like all of the tooling, especially like the recent stuff like Vibe Kit, I don't know if you've seen Gabe's Vibe
Yeah.
Kit, like
Mhm.
that, all of that stuff works on Voy like the same way it works on Algorand. It's almost like you're more limited on Algorand because you don't have ARC 200 tokens. So you have and ARC 72 NFTs. So you have like all of the cool, all the same functionality plus a little bit more on Void, and that is, I think, a key point to hone in on in some ways.
Yeah.
So back in the NFT days, when NFTs was pretty hot, like on Algorand, there was something to do every day. I mean, I could be on my phone for like 2 hours doing stuff. Just going around looking at different things and using the ecosystem. So we need to come up with some more things to do. Keep
Well,
everybody.
and that's where I think with these new tools, especially the Yulu OS that I've been playing around with, if you ask it like, hey, what are some good ideas for applications to be built, it will list out 10 different like pretty solid ideas, and then you can ask it to go build build them, and they'll get it to pretty 90% done. You just have to kind of lean into that a little bit as well. Yeah, so I mean, I recommend giving it a whirl. It's fun. It worked for
Yeah,
me.
I haven't actually set up my own OpenClaw yet. I need to do that. Um, I've been yeah, I just been like avoiding, not avoiding it intentionally. I just haven't gotten around to it.
Yeah.
So
Oh
it's
my God.
it's coming, but
It's
yeah.
pretty crazy. I told, well, I've been messing around with it for the last week, and I was talking with Proof. I'm like, if you haven't picked up on it, I have like a refreshed excitement towards the entire space just because of using it. And yeah, like I was able to set up within like 10 minutes on the algo side when I first started playing around with it and realizing that well, I first started using it with Solana actually and doing some trading and like in a few excuse me, like a day I was profitable on some trades like made like $30 on it, and it was all run through OpenClaw. Um, I'm like, damn, this thing's powerful. And then, you know, looking around and I see Go Plausible, and they've gone live with their MCP, and I'm like, all right, now it's time to dig in and get this thing going to, do some transactions around WAD and helping the WAD peg on the algo side. And so within, an hour or so, I had a bot set up that was, transacting um, using uh, Tiny Man really to buy WAD and then add it to pool. And and then now we've got Shelly went down the rabbit hole into the Ulu OS, and um, it has Humble Swap. I think it uses memory as well, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, there's a few other pieces to it. But yeah, I think you know we're there. There might be a couple of other pieces that are missing, and then the narrative is something that we really need to kind of hash out and make sure that we have dialed in. And I think it's leaning into the experimentation aspect. Like, hey, this is the best, cheapest place to experiment prior to launching on Algorand or anywhere else. But anyway, how's House of Voiager coming along?
It's good. I feel like we're getting close. We've basically taken the approach of trying to do everything as like I don't know if I'd call it correctly as possible. It's probably an overstatement, but like scalable as possible so that it's easy to build out in the future. So like the upfront effort is really, really heavy. Um, but we're making some solid progress. I still don't really have a timeline, but it sort of pushed things out a lot further. The original plan was basically to like get something, almost like a second prototype. And now we're really going for get a truly good experience right off the bat. So, which I do think is the right approach because we already have essentially the prototype, you know, that we've built. So, um, I mean, there's a lot of progress really every single day. Um, it's just it's hard. I don't have the metrics on exactly where we are.
Mhm.
Right now, I'm working on like the administrative functionality, and then once we get through that, I believe it is wiring up the game, the game interface into the the application. So that will be like where we can actually really use it. So
Are you,
that'll
are you
yeah,
guys
it's
still
pretty close.
working on referral system?
Yeah, that's a good point. That probably needs to be all reestablished too. So that'll play into some of the administrative stuff. Um, but I don't remember the details or where exactly that is.
Because I
But
think
there
that,
definitely was a referral like concept to the whole thing that that was being built into it.
yeah, and I think that there it, like could be an opportunity for referral like based incentives for agents, and you could potentially like get an agent to start posting on like Malt Book or something like that. The opportunity to come and and earn some type of incentive to mess around on Voy, and then we might get a flock of agents coming over if there's some incentive for them to earn and do things over here.
Something I want to do is put like the spin mechanism behind an X402 payment. So like an agent could just call it like that endpoint and not need like I mean it works using something like Ulu to facilitate the knowing how basically to give an agent the tools to construct a transaction and all of that. But this would allow them to do an X402 transaction that would just straight up like call the spin mechanism and make the payment for them in like one go. And I think that would be kind of fun because then you could tell an agent to gamble for you and it could just do it.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be really interesting. Super interesting. And it's about like, hey, how do we get distribution to these agents, right? Like
Yep.
how do you how do you attract agents? How do you market to agents, right? I think that's like one of the challenges that we'll need to try to tackle here. And I feel like the incentive to get an agent to do something on chain is a lot lower than to get a person. Like they'll do things for fractions of a penny, whereas people are, hey, I'm not going to get out of bed if it's not going to get me $10. If I can't make $10, I'm not going to come, sit on Void and do things and you know, spin a wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a thought. Cool. Well, I don't know if you got any other kind of topics or anything else you want to chat about, but definitely it's worth trying to set up an open claw. I'm about to embark on trying to help Haruf get one set up here as well. I think I know what we need to do. Essentially, we just have to get him set up in another environment set up on his laptop. Get him to download Node.js, Python, Homebrew, give some skills for get GitHub, like a second GitHub account set up for him, and get it connected to Telegram, and then install some different skills, the Ulu OS, and probably even the Go plausible MCP at the same time, and let him run wild with it. But once we've got that kind of dialed down, I think I'll probably make some tutorials and videos for people to figure out how to do it themselves.
Yeah, and that is a good place to interject, to direct people to these tools on Voy and to be like, point your agent at this.
Yeah, exactly.
And,
that's all it is too. And I've kind of stumbled through it in experimenting. Like I haven't had any issues, but I also have had experience, running Panda and experience using Eliza OS, and doing some things, but I can't say that I'm an expert. So I have this. I'm definitely leaning a little bit more towards like a novice that doesn't really know, a noob that doesn't really know what he's doing. But I have enough, knowledge and skills to be somewhat dangerous with it. What I'd really love to do is like, and it's all about time, but what I'd really love to do is get get an OpenClaw instance up and doing some more marketing stuff for Voy and for Dorkfi. For Dorkfi, it's a little bit easier because we have like a clear niche and like, yeah, this is what we do. Um, Whereas with Voy, and this is why I keep kind of harping on, we need like a niche or like a point. It's so broad. Like being the community chain is like such a broad narrative that it's hard to do marketing and to tell an agent to go out and market it. But if we have like a clear um, point and narrative that we can build around, it's a little bit different. So I'm really liking what you're saying about it being a good place to experiment and start before you launch something on Algorand. So
So what would it take to be able to like launch on? Can we use Voy as like the test stage for like Solana project for projects? So they want to build on Solana, but they can come build on Voy cheaper and easier with the tools, and then get it to Solana. Is that something possible right now?
The path isn't as seamless. So I would say in some cases, yeah, but they operate differently. So it's not as easy to like build something on Solana or build something on Voy and then carry it over to Solana. Like some of your front end, your website, all that stuff, can stay more or less the same, but there are like key differences and they're hard to articulate or to understand without understanding both networks and the way that they operate. But like carrying over from like moving from Voy to Algorand is trivial. It's a matter of pointing to a different node and maybe like redeploying a contract on the same contract on Algorand that you deployed on Voy, or using the that's really all it is. There might be some nuance if you're using certain aspects of the other things built on the network, like if you're using Tinyman's contracts to do swapping, like you would need to change that to use Humble's contracts for swapping, and there will be differences in how they're called and their their interfaces, but the general concept is almost identical. And creating a smart contract and deploying it on Voy and Algorand is identical, where Solana is a whole different language, and Ethereum is a whole different language. So that's kind of the key, I guess.
Okay.
So it's hard to market to someone on Solana and say, hey, come to Voy, it's cheaper. You can, and I think that is a real thing, but it's not going to be come to Voy and build your application and then take it over to Solana without any effort. Where with Algorand, it's like come build your application and take it to Algorand, and it will take you, a couple minutes probably to make that also available on, to make it to port it over to Algorand. Anyway, I have to wrap. I have to leave because I'm getting some tires changed. But
yeah,
it was good kind of catching up. I've kind of been out of the loop for a little bit. I join into the developer meetings, but I miss this one all the time. So
no, it's great to have you. Thanks for coming up, and it's good catching up as well. And yeah, I like I like where things are headed, and it's just about like kind of once again picking a narrative, leaning into it, and just building up the momentum around that narrative is something that we've been lacking as an ecosystem.
Well, and the nice thing is we're in like this. The whole market is in this lull right now, and it's a great time to like think about what we want to do and to start like laying the groundwork for what to do
Yeah.
for when the market starts to pick up again. And it will, it always does. So it's like it's this cyclical nature, but we're in kind of a good spot. And it's something to like remember, because it's hard not to get, disillusioned by like token price and things like that. That, I try to just figure like ignore that the token exists. It's essentially we're just trying to make shit to make shit. And then, then we'll worry about, what tokenomics look like when the market starts to pick back up.
Yeah, totally. All right. Well, hey, thanks, man. I appreciate you. And I'm gonna kind of wrap things up here anyway. Let's close it out. And I think it was a healthy discussion. And I'll be posting another. It's really a policy proposal that outlines these kind of chain narratives that we can have discussions about, and it can change, and people can decide whether or not they like what my ideas are, if they want to add to it. And I feel like it's not just my idea. It's kind of it needs to be driven by the broader community as well. So anyway, yeah, thanks for joining, and we'll chat next week.
Cool. Thank you. You back, man. Thank you.